everyone. Today we have Joanna Gill, a musician from Syntropy. It was a few weeks ago now, your video. And she's kindly offered to have a little bit of chat about her passions and her career. She's currently in New Zealand, so that's quite exciting. Joanna, why don't you start by telling me about a bit about your career, because it's quite an interesting one as a musician.
Yeah, sure. First, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to connect, even when halfway across the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been a musician since I was little. I learned the piano, then the violin, and was fortunate to play in orchestras, which grew my love and passion for composing by playing lots of incredible scores, including Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings, which is very, very much in my mind every day in New
Oh
Zealand
wow.
as I'm here.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah, that's kind of the early years of what started the idea of composing. And I never really thought it would be a career, especially as a woman. But as I went to university, initially in Scotland and Aberdeen, I met Paul Mealer, who is a very, very talented choral composer. And he began to encourage me to start writing for choirs. And at that time, I wasn't so much a singer, but I grew in love with singing and writing for choirs and just couldn't stop. And that was really how my passion for choral music began. And then I joined as many choirs as I could. I learned to conduct so I could understand how to write better. And it's kind of stemmed from there, really. I moved to London and I did a further study actually in film composing and being inspired by Howard Shore's music. And I think for me, where they sort of connect together is the idea of how music can be used so powerfully to enhance a story, to tell a story, or to feed into emotions. And, you know, whether that's choral singing with specific words that are incredible and the music with the words together can really touch people, or whether it's music behind a film and a story, the emotion and characters by what instruments you choose and what kind of style you write can really affect people and bring in develop emotion. So that's the kind of two in my head sort of combine. And I guess over the years I've just developed writing in both genres, and I'm really enjoying it and really grateful to
Wow.
be doing
Yeah,
that.
that's amazing. What an inspiring career that you have. The just a quick question. What's the difference, would you say, as a composer from orchestrating instruments as opposed to voices? Is it a similar kind of template or is it completely different?
Well, different in the sense that orchestra, you've got far greater um, scope to play with.
Mm.
So voices, you are quite restricted to what the four parts, say you're writing SATB, what you can do. There's so much you can do, but I often think of it like a brass quartet could be similar to a choral quartet, or a string quartet could be similar to a choral quartet. Whereas with the orchestra, you have all those different areas and groupings of instruments to layer and build upon. There's just so much more available. So there is some similarities, and you can hear a brass chorale sound so beautiful, like a choir can sound. But you know, then you add the strings, then you add the woodwind, then you add percussion. Whereas with voices, you couldn't add on to what you've already got. And you don't need to because it's beautiful. But there is a big difference. There's more to play with, obviously, with an
Mm.
orchestra.
Mm. And what kind of when you're I guess I would also like to know the process behind you kind of composing and the kind of again the comparisons with me with making visual art. So do you have an idea? You have a seed of an idea, an inspiration that's kind of, especially like for example, you're in New Zealand and something comes up that you're inspired from. What's then your next step to take that inspiration?
Yeah, usually it can be one or two things for me, either going straight to the piano, which is usually where I start, and just improvising around a few ideas. Or if I'm really stuck, I'll just go for a walk in a beautiful scenery, either by the water, up a mountain. And when there's no one around, I'll just start singing melodies or thinking of ideas. And sometimes I'll voice note them on my phone to remember and then go back to the piano and play through something. I mean, for me, I very rarely hear a whole thing come together in my head and then that's it. It's time spent improvising around ideas, and very much kind of. So I'm writing a piece at the moment while I'm out here, and it's a choral piece, so there's text. So that obviously inspires what I write and trying to tell the story behind the text. So I'm trying to think musically how you would bring that out. So yeah, there's lots of different ways.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun creative challenge. I've never
Yeah.
actually I believe you're the first choral composer in Syntropy. So
Mm.
yeah, it's really interesting to get that type of insight. And if you had kind of unlimited budget, unlimited resources, what would you do? Would you, I don't know, you tell me, what would you do with a choral composition?
Oh, I see. I mean, the one thing composers want is budget to have the ability to get the best players in the world to record your music. And that is often where it's hard. And, I mean, you want the biggest orchestra you can get, the biggest choir you can get, big choral symphony, and then shove it on a film like Lord of the Rings, and that's the dream.
Mm, mm,
But yeah, no, it's to me, it's about the combination with the players as well, and the relationships you build with musicians, and writing for particular. It's great if you've got really good friends that play, and having that collaboration and working with people as well, because especially in the film world, working with the director is such a key collaboration because you're trying to tell their story through the music. So I think similarly when you're writing choral classical concert pieces, you work with whoever's commissioning and you're trying to and the musicians you've got, because no two choirs are the same. And that's what I'm finding whilst I'm out here. I'm writing two different choral pieces for two different groups of choirs, and some of them strengths are in the higher upper register of the sopranos, so you can go as high as you want and they'll be pure singing, whereas some of them the basses won't be able to sing too low. So you just have to be aware of who you're working with, what musicians every time,
mm.
to know how to get the best out of them. So for me, it's yeah, the budget would be on the quality of the musicians that you can
Yeah,
work with and the people you can work with.
that's interesting. So sort of it's a strange one, isn't it? Because the way you talk about the voice, it's like your instrument, it's a tool,
Mhm.
and the same with other art forms. You can only do as well as the tool can give you. But it's strange to talk about that because they're a person.
Yeah,
I suppose, yeah, a piece of technology or paint, for example. The quality of paint, the quality of the voice. Um,
yeah.
and and I wonder if the kind of if you nurture that relationship with the person, would their technique, would their quality improve? Because unlike paint, unlike no matter how much that paint, you kind of it stops at a certain point and you have to then go and get a higher quality. I wonder if it's the
Mm.
same with a voice, which can, I don't know, be improved, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, the composer's never there to tell a musician how to and what to do with their instrument. Usually they're extremely talented in what they're doing and
Mm,
they can work with you to get the best out of your music. So I would never be there to, you know, improve somebody's musicianship. But what I would want to do is get across to them what I'm trying to tell the
mm,
story through the music so that they're bringing that out in the way they play or they sing.
mm.
So I think that's the more kind of crucial
Yeah.
collaboration.
Oh, that's amazing. And so you're in New Zealand at the minute, um, having writing you said two choral compositions. So what's next? So what happens once those are written? Do you come back to the UK? Are you going to stay out there and do and put on something?
I'd love to stay out here, but no, I'm here for 6 weeks, so I'm halfway through that spell, and I'm visiting quite a lot of choirs while I'm here. I'm working with a few directors and meeting up with some composers. And when I come back, those pieces will be premiered, but one it will be in London, the other will be in America, so I won't be at that
Mm.
one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the big thing for me this year is my album coming out. So I have a classical choral album that is being mixed at the moment, and that will hopefully come out around April time. We're just
Brilliant.
finalizing.
Well, where can one get, listen and download? Is it a downloadable thing? Is
Sure.
it a
Yeah, it will be streamed everywhere, all the
Spotify?
normal digital platforms, Spotify, Apple Music. There'll actually be physical copies too for those who still
Yay!
own those.
CD in the car.
Um, yeah, it's called Love Illuminates, and hopefully
Lovely.
around April, May time it will be released.
Oh, that sounds amazing. You can imagine the inspiration behind writing that. What
Yeah.
was the inspiration behind Love Illuminates?
It's a variety of about 20 different pieces I've written over the last 10 years, and it's my first album. So I handpicked the kind of most um, varied pieces I've written over the years. And I guess there's always a theme of love and healing. There's a lot that I tend to write out of a place of music having that powerful tool to bring peace and to bring healing to people, and whether that's through words, which can be from scripture and from the Bible, which can be very healing to people, or whether it's popular poems that people would know about the similar matters. But I find that I think post COVID, I was just really keen to get an album out there that was a place to bring peace for people, a space for people to receive peace. And yeah, there's a whole mix from a lovely string piano trio that I put together, which is the only instrumental piece. I say lovely, I've got lovely players playing on it. So it was very special to record with them. And then it's the Chapel Choir of Selwyn College, conducted by Sarah MacDonald, who's wonderful up in Cambridge. And we had the privilege of recording in Ely Cathedral because of the beautiful acoustics they have. So there was all these components coming together that made it really special, and hopefully people will enjoy it. But yeah, there's a mix of sacred and secular work.
Oh, brilliant. That sounds amazing. It's like a retrospective in that way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, I will definitely keep an eye out for that. April.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't got a date yet, but hopefully around then.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool. And it was really lovely to hear you speak about the power of music with healing, um
mm,
and the effect that it has on the listeners and the the musician as well, creating it. And I've always found it quite an interesting process from the the creator, as in artist, musician, having that intention of healing, love, hope, and that being then transfused into what they have expressed for then
mm,
the audience to be able to feel that. Um,
mm,
and yeah, so to have a whole album dedicated with that in mind, imagine
mm.
it's gonna be quite special.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah,
Hopefully people find it touching.
yeah. And would you say that your creating music is like a meditation for you?
Absolutely. I think some of the toughest things in life I've gone through, for instance, I lost my nephew
Mm,
about 12 years ago, and he was only 5 months old. He was a baby
mm,
born with cancer, really, really unusual case. But your mind just boggles when something like that happens. How can a child be born with a lump? And I just went to the piano and I had to write. It was my way of expressing the grief, I guess.
mm.
And I found it quite healthy and quite a good way to process when things are difficult and when things are good as well, not just the tough times, but particularly the tough times. I think music can sometimes just really speak to the heart in a way that other things can't. And it can be a very powerful tool in that. So again, one of the pieces on the album is about Oliver, and the words were written by his mum,
Mm.
my sister-in-law, and my brother. And I
Wow.
think a lot of people have already found it quite helpful when processing grief,
Mm.
listening to songs like that with meaning behind them. And yeah, for me particularly, find it a place I go to for
Yeah.
myself to help
Yes.
myself.
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
hope is that it helps others as well.
Wow. Yeah. It's yeah, grief is such um a complicated emotion to work through. So having something like music where you've got these multiple layers, so not only do you express the emotion, but then with the words and with the collaboration, there's extra layers that can be added to kind of put across this multi multi-layered emotion all of that is grief. So yeah, that's very inspiring to kind of to be able to do that. Um, and I just hope that people that have never kind of played music or attempted to write music,
Mm.
um, I wish that there was a tool out there which could allow them to easily be able to to create something when they're experiencing uh, something that complicated.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, they can listen to the beautiful music of Joanna Gill. um, and so sorry to go back briefly. So you're in New Zealand. You're going to be coming back, and then you have an album released in April. Yeah, I guess another 3 weeks. We're actually not too far off. All that start of the year now.
Yeah.
Wow. And I just want to say, yeah, it has. And thank you again for sharing your time and sharing your thoughts with me in this chat. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
And I look forward to sharing this with the Syntropy audience as well. I'm sure they are keen to understand the musician behind the track. So thank you again.
well, thank you for what you do. I think it's wonderful to have such an app for, promoting and helping people's well-being and showing the use of where music and art and visual can come together and help towards that. So it's
Mm.
great what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, Joanna. Well, I'll leave you to your evening, and I will start my day. And good luck with the rest of your 3 weeks.
Thank
And yeah, I'll be in touch. I'll keep an eye on in April as well.
you. Lovely to chat to you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you too, Joanna. Take care.